Welcome to the Elevate podcast, a resource to help your ministry take the next step. Whether you're leading a team, navigating church leadership, or preparing for what's ahead, this show is designed to equip you with practical tools, real conversations, and lessons learned from those who've been there. Today, we're talking about something close to my heart, special needs ministry. I'm Ellie Axford, Special Needs Ministry Director at Brentwood Baptist, and today I'm joined by Carley Ellis, the Special Needs Programming Director. Carley's helped shape and strengthen the way we serve individuals and families through our Embrace Special Needs Ministry. We'll be sharing how this ministry started, why it matters, and what it looks like to create a welcoming, gospel-centered space for every person in your church. All right, let's jump in. Carley, why don't you introduce yourself and tell a little bit more about your role in our ministry?
So I started in this ministry about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been that long now. As a volunteer under you for our special friends in the preschool ministry.
That's how we reeled you in.
Yes. Give me those tiny little ones where we get to play and, it's just been so great watching them grow. As I've grown in the ministry, I get to watch them grow. And some of them are in kids ministry or even middle school now. Yeah. And so as they've changed, I've changed, the ministry's changed. And so I've been in a couple different positions, but now I'm the programming director. And so
what does that mean?
I get to do all the things. I'm so excited that I get to implement specialized plans for Sundays and Wednesday friends, for our respites and our camps, and training volunteers about what those specifics look like. It could be anything from this person loves balloons and this person hates balloons. It's very intricate, or it could be we are working on socialization for this friend, but we're actually working more on just having a gospel conversation with this friend, and what it is in that moment, because it changes from semester to semester, and we're really trying to meet the need of not just the individual, but the whole family and how it impacts them. Right. But also one of my biggest loves is working with the other campuses. And so for those who don't know, Brentwood Baptist has 9 campuses, and Embrace has its own imprint on each of those.
Yeah, and it looks different at every campus, which is really cool. All campuses are so unique, and
just like
Embrace at every campus.
Yeah, they have a different pastors, so they have different Embrace people, and just the families that are there. And so we learn from them on how it works at a small campus versus our very large campus where we have 130 families that we're serving with Embrace. And so it's really fun to see that and then express that to other churches who are starting out small and what they can do and how they can grow, and maybe express some of our growing pains that we've had.
Right.
And what we've learned from, so that maybe they don't have to go through that themselves, and just know that it's all part of the learning process.
Yeah. And you're our VBS queen this summer.
Yes, I'm super excited.
All of the VBSs.
Yes, I'm going to go to 3 straight weeks of VBS before going to beach camp. So I'm going to be, if I don't have the dances down, that's my problem.
Right.
But hey, so since we're talking about what we are currently and how big we are, let's start back at the beginning. And what did it look like
Way
day
back.
one?
Yeah, day one. Our ministry has been here, as you know, officially over 12 years, with a paid position, I guess. But sometimes those take time, right? And lots of talking through and thinking about, dreaming about what everything might look like. So it's crazy to think back and think I was a special ed teacher, and some of my friends that I taught actually went to church here and were having trouble in class. And there were several of us that were just meeting with a preschool minister or maybe a next gen minister, trying to help these friends with special needs, and kind of like the start of an informal special needs ministry, I guess. We did that for years, and it just kept getting passed around, or we'd get momentum and then a minister kind of in charge of it would leave, or, different things happen. And so, all in God's timing, but then our church just felt that call and that importance that we need to be serious about this and have a legit ministry, and let's hire someone. So I got to do that 12 and a half years ago, started as a coordinator, and we both love telling the story to everyone that we talk with about ministry, how we started with 4 friends in a closet right?
They were not in the closet. I
Right.
promise you. We do not put friends in a closet.
No, not what we like to do. And
There was just resources
closet for some
in
supplies.
the closet.
Right.
And they got pulled out to use into the classroom.
Right.
It's one of those transient situations.
Yeah, so it's crazy to think where we are now, and I know we'll talk about that in our time together. But we do have our amazing space now and building, but we didn't start like that, right?
Yeah.
So we started with our 4 friends who just were in our church. Some of them were born in this church. And people were just taking care of them, kind of organically happening in preschool or kids ministry. And were dealing with problems or different situations as they arose. And then there was a more concerted effort, like how can we help these families more and make a place for their kiddos?
Yes. How can you be intentional instead of reactive, proactive?
Right.
So instead of going, oh, you want to go to VBS? Let's see what that looks like. Now let's think, okay, so these families already attend. They'll probably want to go to VBS, or they're the same age for VBS people. We should offer it. But before we offer it, let's think through some of the hurdles that they're going to have to go through and how we can already make some adaptations to make it easier.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just a little bit too loud.
Right.
And we can have some headphones, and that's easy.
Right.
So just making that available
Easy, basic.
instead of parents feeling like it's always a, can we please come to VBS? Could you make an exception for us, even though it's going to look a little different?
Right. Yeah, thinking ahead on what they need. And I think when we started, it was for the parents, right?
Yes.
So the parents could worship, so the parents could attend a life group. And as we've grown and adjusted and changed, I feel like we are helping parents now, but we're helping our friends too. And, you know, how do we let the gospel, teach them the gospel, and how do we reach them? So it's just, changed over the years. But when we first started, again, 4 friends, and we were completely in the classrooms. Had a buddy in the classrooms in the preschool or kids or maybe students. And then as some of our friends grow and change, that just might not be the best environment for them. And so we started to have one classroom in kids ministry. And then our friends in kids ministry were nice to us and gave us 2 classrooms, right? Because we had some friends that just weren't able to, it was not the best placement for them to be in their typical age classroom. So
creating those sensory spaces that are separate, but still sort of integrated. I know you did some reverse integration where you had some peers coming in. So it gives them that experience that they're with their same age friends, but yet they're not in the typical classroom where it's maybe too much for them. Too many people, too much chaos, especially teens. Let's play all the games and be very ruckus and loud, and that's just not for certain people.
Right, yeah.
There's still to this day, she does not like sound. Our certain friend that a lot of this started around her.
Right, yeah. I think, and then you get to a point where we have teens or young adults that are coming into kids ministry, right, for our classrooms when they're there. And that's just not age appropriate. They don't, they're like, I finished kids ministry 6 years ago. Why am I still walking through these doors?
So
right.
True.
And so then we moved from our 2 classrooms to a hallway and we had several, I don't know, how many do we have? 5 classrooms on that hallway?
Yeah. And I think
Spaces
one of them was like
that
a
were kind of
storage
divided.
/ this was our adult size changing table, which again, you got to think about those things too. Whenever you think about your bathroom accessibility and how we have adults who have different needs in the bathroom. And so we have to be able to, provide for that. We don't want their parents being like, oh, just to come to church, I have to then go to the bathroom and take him on the floor and change him. Like, that's not honoring. That's not dignified. And so that's something that the church came alongside and provided that. And now with our center, we have, 2 of them, and we have another one at the Station Hill campus. And so it just does all those different things that you have to think about to be intentional rather than, retroactive. Is just all those ways that can show that you care.
Yeah. So our parents were very patient as we've adjusted. They continue to be amazing, obviously, with different changes. And so we've been in our building 3 years now, right? We have
Just time blows by.
I should know the exact measurements, 15,000 square foot space with multiple learning classrooms, sensory rooms, a kitchen, all kinds of fun art room that we are so thankful for. But I think knowing where we came from and how we started makes us even more appreciative of the space we have now. And we're reminded when we have tours, we do lots of tours, we do lots of meetings with other ministries or churches trying to start a special needs ministry. And it's a good reminder to think about how we started and how far we've come, and just how the Lord has just blessed us each step of the way.
Yeah, because so many of them are like, my church is the same size as this building.
Right.
How do you guys do this?
Yeah.
And it's just sort of showing it can happen anywhere. It can happen in a tiny space. It can happen in a church that's utilizing a school. And so they're always moving stuff in and out.
Right, like our West End campus had to do. Yeah.
So it's just how we can help support the family in whatever way it looks like. And I feel like it's very... open communication is something I'm always preaching. Is just I want the parents to feel like we're a team, and so they can ask me questions, and I'll just be honest. Like these are the resources I have. These are the things that are available to me, and sometimes that's really helpful to hear it from them.
Right.
Specifically, one of the situations that I'm thinking of is you remember whenever Benja's dad reached out and asked if he could start attending the 11 o'clock service and start worshiping with his friends.
Go to worship with us,
And with us, we're like, whew, it's already hard enough to get volunteers for that. And he's a little extra movie and loves to make some random noises during the worship service. And is that going to cause a problem for other people? But hey, we had that conversation and we got over some of our rigidity and me being in a box of like, this is what church has to look like.
Right.
Very Southern Baptist right here. Church is getting up and down and being quiet. That's what my grandma bred into me. And so, but it's not that way. And so now we, the parents came for that first week to sort of show us how to talk to him and how to do some silent, shh, but not saying shush.
Redirecting, right?
So that we're not doing that in front of everybody. And now he is engaged and we have regular volunteers who are with him. And it's opened up my mind definitely that more friends that I'm like, hey, Grayson's so much like Benja. Why can't he go with a buddy? And now Cooper. And so our group at 11 o'clock that goes and sits in the back of worship is just so amazing. And they're able to be included and be incorporated in that way and worship and, make a joyful noise to the Lord. But also it's understandable and it's okay for the fact that they can't sit through the sermon. Like that's just not for them. So they come back to the seminar. They come back
and have their own class, their own life group, and get to learn the lesson. And often we have Jay on TV, right?
Yes.
They're listening to part of the sermon, but maybe in an environment where they can move around a little bit more.
Definitely.
Yeah. I love, I got to go this past week with our friends to worship at 11. And it is neat to see how that's a newer experience the last, couple of years, and how many just really enjoy that worship time. And getting to do that with the church, right?
Yeah. And I think one of those things, so it just talks about how important this ministry is. If we hadn't started doing that, I don't know if we would have really noticed that Megan has such a beautiful singing voice.
Yeah.
And how she should be incorporated into the congregation and singing, and if she has more time, she should join choir.
Right.
And just so many of our friends that have these amazing abilities that so many times they can be discounted and not seen as part of this whole congregation, this whole body.
Right.
That they are part of the Great Commission. They should be learning the gospel and sharing the gospel in whatever they do. We have friends, Nicholas, who greets with his dad. And then Rachel had joined choir for a while. Right. And Caitlin was serving in preschool with little preschoolers because that's where her heart led.
Yeah.
And so I have those pictures up on my board to remind me that these are ways that I even can get stuck in a box of our friends who are impacted by these different needs. Maybe they can't do certain things, but that doesn't mean they aren't able to do so many more things than we could dream of.
Well, I think we see that, right?
Yeah.
And in 1 Corinthians 12, it talks about the parts that sometimes people see as useless or indispensable, right? Yeah. We even have an Embrace shirt that says indispensable on it, based on that verse. And I think we see that. We get to live that. I mean, we're the lucky ones, right? Getting to do this ministry and seeing how our friends are indispensable to this church and the body of Christ. And I want every church to get to experience that. I think a lot of churches, which we won't get on our soapbox here, right? We speak the same language, but we can start to think, I've had several people comment to me like, that's so sweet. That's so nice that y'all do a special needs ministry.
Yeah. Like, good for you.
Yeah, way to go. You're so...
That's just not for me,
and I'm like,
but it's for you.
Yeah,
It's
actually,
for everybody.
it's not nice of me. Like, well, I have the best job ever, but thank you for saying that. But churches, I guess I should say as a whole, if they are not engaging families affected by disability, then they're the ones missing out. Like, it's not a nice to do, right?
They're missing out on a whole population of people.
Yeah.
Because it's not just that individual. It's their parents. It's their siblings. Maybe if it's a cousin, because they're like, hey, if the church is not open and inviting to my family member, then it must not be a place for me. You guys are such hypocrites that you're not taking in the least of these to take me in. And so we would be missing out on amazing people.
Yes, and their families who are serving in our church. We have staff members that have friends in our ministry. We have deacons. We have just all in worship, in choir, and serving in a variety of capacities, leading life groups. So obviously that our church would be missing out on those family members, not just our friends, but the family members too. So I think, that I know we've talked about that. And when people approach us, they usually are asking, they see the need, right? They're like, how can we do... Not that we're the experts, but we have experience, I guess. We can tell everyone, this worked for us. This didn't work for us, because we have lots of those stories as well. But I think it's neat to see how God's just given that heart to so many churches. I feel like it's more the norm now than the rare churches that have it. So I love that we're getting lots of questions about that. So happy to help.
I feel like one of the ways that we get this question a lot is, how do you start a special needs ministry? Or even, I want to, as the individual who's coming to talk to us, but how do I get other people on board?
Yeah.
And so in that, it's like, just start where you're at.
Right.
Just like we said, with starting with 4 friends with who was already here. Right. So talk around, ask people. And if you can't easily define or find the person who's like that parent and their child is already receiving assistance with just an extra buddy, and let me just see what they need. Yeah. Maybe it's a grandparent. Maybe, we have a grandparent who's trying to get her daughter to come to church. And so in that, her granddaughter who has autism, well, the mom's a little bit weary. She's like, how are people going to accept her? Or is it going to be a safe environment? Is she going to be loved and, not just put into a room and ignored? Right. Or is she going to feel comfortable? Like, are we going to make her secure in this? Yeah. And so it was talking with that grandparent and inviting them to all come at like a quieter space where it's not Sunday and chaos, but hey, come tour, come look through the building, come touch all this stuff. Right. This is where you would get your stickers, and just ways that we can make it more accessible. Through that process. Yeah.
When I think a lot of churches try to, maybe someone has in their head, we need to start a ministry for adults with special needs. Do you have adults with special needs in your church? Like, let's start. Do you have preschoolers? Do you have adults? What are we working with? And then we have some people that tell us, oh, our church doesn't have anyone with a disability. And that's probably not true, but have you gone in the neighborhoods? Because I promise you they're there. I mean, the stats with disability are... as anyone knows. Yes. I wish I had updated stats in my brain, but
well, and they are the unseen. So they're the ones that you're not seeing when you canvass and you go to Walmart or the grocery store or just to the public library. They're not going because their kids are having a hard time being in public spaces. And so when you're handing out those flyers and checking in, they're not coming. If even it's the neighborhood cookout, they're not coming. And so how can you be more proactive in reaching them and making the open space to just say, hey, we may not have it perfect and we may not suit exactly your needs, but I'd love to hear what they are to see if we can. Yeah. And that's what we're still doing.
I know. Exactly. How many parents have we had that have like, I've never been to a Baptist church, but but you have something for my child. So can we come and try it, you know?
Yeah, and it's so fun to talk through, like, oh, you don't know what baptism is? Great. Okay, I haven't had that
What's a life group, right? What's Sunday
this?
school? Yeah, let's tell you.
Okay,
Yeah.
you come from a different denomination. That's great. But I love that you're so willing, because they're like, I have to find a place for my child.
Right.
They need to be plugged in, and I know that they need church.
Yeah.
And so how can I make that happen, even if that means I am changing, you know, what church looks like for me and for my whole other family.
And that kind of leads me to think about our day program.
Yeah.
Going back, I guess, when we opened our building 3 years ago, we said, this is great. And that building was needed, right, for our Sunday. We were outgrowing the hallway. We needed more space. And so that was built in response to our need for more space on Sundays. But then you think, we have this amazing space built for our friends with disability in mind. So what are we going to do with it all week? It can't just sit, you know.
It's not going to sit empty all
just
week.
with us
and
there
just
working. Yeah. So we started a day program. Started with 2 days a week that first year, I guess.
Yeah. That was a fun time. We got to learn some of our things that we could do.
Yes.
I was very much the Pinterest artist.
You were. Yeah. Carley, you were the art teacher.
Yes.
I was the music and dance teacher, which
we were very blessed to have a kiln that was donated.
Right.
And so we got to do some ceramic projects, and I had to do a lot of calls to my sister, who is a master in ceramics.
Learned as we were
I have
teaching.
no idea how to make this thing happen.
But with the day program, it's open to the community.
Yes.
It's a free program. It is a free program. But we opened that to the community. We didn't want to just say, this is only for our church. This is only for, and what we didn't really plan for, but what just has happened that's been amazing is several of our day program adults, our friends, have said their parents have gotten to know us and trust us. They see that we love their child, their young adult or their adult, and hey, could they come on a Sunday?
It makes me so much think
Absolutely. Like, yes, you can.
Anna.
Yeah.
Like that story just got me so big, because her mom was like, oh, well, we've has
tried
these
church.
Different things, and it just doesn't work for her. Yeah. Are you sure? Are you really sure that she can come? And we're like, yes.
Like, Anna, she's easy. Let's go.
Yeah,
Come on.
I was like, I see her all the time for the day program.
Yeah.
Like, bring her on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And they're like, are you really sure? And then, like, the first time she had a little bit of an upset, and we talked to mom about that, and she's like, oh, do we need to stop coming? And I was like, no. I was just openly communicating that this happened.
Yeah,
and
just letting you know.
Next
no
time
biggie.
we'll navigate through it better, and we'll know now that, you know, she likes to rip paper.
Yeah.
And it's other people's paper.
And her parents have joined. They've gone through membership class, our Discover
and they want to get
class.
her baptized and talk about her membership.
I know.
It's such a blessing.
So that's just that's been a huge blessing to see and know, you know, but we have several day program members that are in churches, which is amazing. Like, I love that. But to be able to welcome and some new friends that have not had a church home in years.
And mend some of those church hurts.
Yes.
And that's just a term that we use a lot, because there are so many stories. Even if you may try to use the best, like, information possible, or use the right terms to be so loving, but sometimes you have to set those boundaries of like, hey, we don't feel equipped to handle this specific instance. We're trying, and maybe we need to take these 5 other steps to make us meet the need of your child, but we're not there yet. You know, we're trying to get trained people of whatever that looks like, or if we're trying to get a separate space for them to be safely guarded. But like, if that's not working for them, then the parents just hear, you know, rejection.
Right.
And then that causes a lot of church hurt, and they just don't want to go back. And so we're trying to open up a space to where, can you come for the day program? Can you come to Respite? We're going to give you free childcare to love on your child well, and you get to go take a break.
Right. Yeah.
While your child gets to love and be here at church. And maybe through that, it'll heal some of those wounds.
Right.
And you can be more open to those conversations.
Right.
And come back.
We both have kids, right?
Yes.
Sunday morning is hard.
It is.
It's never easy to get here, get everyone ready. And so it's just another level that our families have to deal with. You know, maybe there's just so many steps. I mean, I can think of multiple different families. Some of our families that have multiple kiddos with a disability.
It's a lot.
And
some mornings I'm just like,
I feel like
praying
we
y'all
need
get
to,
here.
yeah, we need to cheer when they walk in. Like and we do.
You dressed
sometimes.
everybody and you made it.
Everyone's here. A couple weeks ago, one of our friends came in. They have a family with 5 kids, 2 with disability, and she came in and said, he doesn't have shoes. We thought we had him, no shoes, and I was like, it's all right, we got it.
We'll clean his
you
feet
made
afterwards.
it to church, and yeah. His feet were quite dirty at the end.
And
we went outside.
most of our friends, they take their socks and shoes off anyways.
Right, that's
they
true.
get so comfy.
Not a big deal.
And I take that as a point of pride that they're like, this is my second home.
Yes.
This is my space. And that is one of the
Yeah.
fun parts that we get to do with having this separate space in this building.
Right.
Is that we really try to individualize each of the different parts that when they come in, they feel like this is home.
Yeah.
It shouldn't look clinical. It shouldn't be like a hospital.
No.
We have pictures of them everywhere. And
friends
it's like,
that-
this is your favorite toy.
Favorite swing.
Yes.
This kid loves the piano. This kid loves the Lego table, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
They
you
all have
wouldn't
their
know that
different-
unless you just talk to them.
Yeah.
And figure out what they like and what they dislike instead of just blanketly saying all children love these things.
Right.
Then we wouldn't know that Eldana's just like a master at the piano. And like
Amazing.
that's a
Yes.
good way to get her Sunday started. Like just let her play for a bit. We all get to enjoy and have some worship.
Sometimes we have Christmas songs in July,
Yes.
but that's okay.
It's all
Yeah.
good. Or it's
It
like
works.
KP with her bongos
Yep.
and Graham with his
We
his
have
guitar.
lots of musicians.
Yes, we
for
do.
sure.
We live it up. We get to have our own little live band.
Dance party time.
I love it. Oh, Charlie gets me with those dance parties. I'm sweating by the end of a Sunday morning.
I think every Sunday morning we are. They're busy. They're busy and fun. Exhausting, but fun. And I think just so many of our volunteers comment. I mean, we hear this all the time. This is 1 hour of our volunteer day, or maybe a few hours of our Sunday morning.
We can make it through 1
Our
hour.
parents are doing this 24/7. We can handle it. We got it. That's why you and I try to not say no. I mean, we try to say yes to whatever kiddo wants to come. How can we accommodate? How can we make, different accommodations for that child?
Can we
Because
push it off for another 30 minutes. I know we're having a bit of a meltdown,
Right.
but mom's
Right.
going to almost hit
Yeah.
service time, so let's let her finish the
know.
sermon. at
How
least.
many parents have said to us, which I just take for granted. I've always been able just to drop my kids in preschool or kids ministry, wherever they are, and not worry about them. And so many parents after their first couple of weeks have just said, I haven't been able to worship with my husband in years.
Just take that weight off
Yeah.
of not checking constantly.
Right.
Are
Yeah.
you okay?
Yeah.
Did you do something? Are you going to throw up? That's one of our
Or like
friends now.
knowing, like we'll call you
Yeah.
if we need you. We will call you. We're not, or we'll come find you if we need
Yes,
to.
yes,
We don't have to
definitely.
do that very often, but we will. But just that they know, and I love just how closely we get to just connect and communicate with our families, so they know that we do have that relationship with their child and that they're safe. They're in a safe environment with people who love them, who are going to teach them about Jesus, and you can go learn.
We
at
want
the
what's
same
best
point.
for them, and it's
Yeah.
just so freeing for them to also just not connect only with other members of the body
Right.
and with the worship, but with their spouse.
Right.
And to have that just breather moment, it's necessary for all of us to just de-escalate. I feel like so many of them are just in like that constant fight or flight moment, and their cortisol levels are just so high that they never get to really take a full deep breath.
Yeah.
And so it's just so important to have that for them, to have that break time. And so sometimes, as we did, yes, we were providing buddies at the very beginning.
Right.
But we also started with a respite.
Yeah, like
'Cause
6
that
months in.
Yeah,
we
it was a
did
great
respite.
way to tell the community, like, hey, we're here,
Yeah.
and we want
Why
to
don't
get
you
to know
talk
your
a little
child
bit more
well.
about respite and what we do there.
Yeah, respite
one of
has
your babies.
grown so much. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
started out with a recess with a capital E in the
99
center,
balloons.
99
Yep.
balloons. Yep. And so they have a program that's amazing to get started
Yeah.
for first-time churches. It really helps you with your volunteer training or even your sign-up system if you're
Have a
not.
curriculum book. Yeah, they
Exactly.
kind of do it all for you. You just have to
Yes.
provide a space and people.
Yeah, and it's so great because it's
they're
not only
great.
talking about the individuals, but also the siblings and how you can love on them well,
Yeah.
because many times they don't get a break either. They're always in
Right.
charge of their sibling.
Right.
And so they need some intentional time too, to have a break away from being in charge of, I got to keep Johnny in the same
Yeah,
space.
they're not the buddy for
Yes,
their
they're not
sibling.
the buddy. They
Right.
have their own time.
They
and
might
it's-
have their
so
own
it's
buddy.
beautiful.
Yeah.
But then when COVID hit, we realized that so many families were just in desperate need of a break. It didn't matter that they were, so recess only goes till like 5th grade.
Right.
It's a specific age
Certain
range
ages,
of the younger friends. And so we saw all of our adult friends and their families going, please pull my hair out, take my child, do something.
Yeah.
And so when we were finally returning back to the church, we were like, okay, we're going to have a respite for everybody and it's going to be amazing. And it was a blowout and I love it. It was the best time ever.
Yeah.
But it was a learning experience.
Right. It's hard when you have a 3-year-old and a 35-year-old, right?
And they both want to be on the bounce house at the same time.
How do we do this?
And you're trying to get in there yourself. And I am not a bounce house person. Like, well, I'm going to pick y'all out of here. So we realized, okay, we need to separate that.
Yeah.
So we have a preschool kid respite, so that's that same age range that's going to, come to the recess. So your 3-year-old.
Do that on Saturday mornings.
Yep. Saturday mornings because they wake up early.
Right.
And they need a good nap afterwards. So we'll wear them out for you.
We'll
so you can go have brunch date with your spouse or go shopping or do laundry.
Some parents do. They're like, I'm so boring. I did laundry and went to the grocery. But at least they could do it without, a kiddo underfoot. So
promising, do 5 suckers for you to sit in this cart with me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have our student adult respite on Friday nights. And so
that's when students and adults like to hang out. Right?
After school, we
hang out with your friends
and
Friday
do more
night,
stuff.
Yeah.
And the way that we can make that a little bit different for them and the way that that's evolved is that in that one, because they're older and because they're more part of the church and the congregation, we do more service projects.
Yes.
And it's so awesome.
That's been fun.
We have been working with the missions department for their local items, but also with foster and adoption ministry whenever they're packing things. Or even
Operation Christmas Child.
Yes.
Christmas.
Who doesn't love to pack a present?
We did that recently, like February. We were packing Christmas boxes. So
you can do it
ahead
year-round.
of the game. It is a year-round activity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's ways that we can engage our friends in this activity.
Giving back.
Yeah. And then they get to learn more and the parents are like, oh, they can serve, they can be a part. And I'm like, yes, they can.
Yes.
Let's do it together.
I know. That's been really fun in our day program too. Yeah. We had a bigger emphasis this year on serving and giving back because they get to come to this day program and receive these classes that we have. Right. Yeah. And so it's like, how can you give back? And that's been fun. Our friends have made freezer meals to stock our freezer, which is amazing. We give those to families and friends of the ministry. And then
what
else
Cultivate.
Yeah, Cultivate.
Picking potatoes. I know some friends were like, how dare you make me touch dirt? And others were like,
it's hilarious to see who is just, I'm all in on this and who is standing, but they're joyfully serving, chatting with the cultivators out there. And
one of my favorites was when you guys went to Surefire and you wrote little things on the coffee cups. And it was just such a blessing to see all the people coming around with the coffee cups that had little notes from
a friend
the
would text me like, look what I got in my coffee today. That's so fun. Yeah. I would want to get a note from our friends. Or heart, or God loves you. I mean, they were writing. Some would start writing a paragraph on there. We're like, okay, just let's get a quick little
and that's the whole point is, yes, we do the day program, and yes, we have a separate space, but that doesn't mean that not everybody can do a day program.
Yeah.
Depending on, what are you guys doing during the week? How can you open it up? Because yes, we're 4 days a week, but friends are only coming 2. So you come Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And so could you open up your building?
Yeah.
From
you don't
10
have
to
to have 40
for
friends.
A couple hours.
Could you have 5 friends?
Could you have 5?
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
And just, we have them coming around to different ministries in our church doing fun things.
Yeah.
They got to come to the comms team here and do their own little podcast
the best
and
day.
take some pictures. And so how are you utilizing just who's around?
Right. Well, that's been a big emphasis this year that we've done. Joanna's done that with day program, is how can we serve, right? Our friends, how can they serve? And also, how can we expose them to other ministries in our church, in the church building? We're not just in our building.
Yes.
We have this whole big church. And then how can we expose other ministries to our friends? Because they're amazing and everyone needs to know them. And so, we came here, they sat over here and acted like they were doing a podcast. Lots of them had lots to say.
Oh, they did.
Right?
It's amazing. I would subscribe to those podcasts.
For sure. Way better than this one. And we went to music and
I got to touch all the instruments.
Yes.
That was a favorite day for me.
Yeah, in the orchestra room. And then they got to stand on the stage with Travis and sing some songs. That was really fun. All the days have been so fun, getting to go and see different ministries and what they do, and
I think that's
learn more
really
about them.
just, if it engages the different ministries to know about this population and
Right.
how it's needed, it sort of spurs in their mind like, hey, when this event's happening, how is that going to impact people with disabilities? Or how can I be more proactive in caring for those with disabilities?
Right.
I was just talking with Renee the other day, and how she said, oh, this VBS meeting is coming up. We should have thought about how you could be a part of this. And I'm like, oh yeah, Joyce did reach out to me about that. And so you can have advocates that are a part of the teams who can be like, hey, how does this, work with them? But also just having your special needs advocate or your coordinator or whoever that is being a part of those table conversations.
Right. Well, people, it's not that they want to exclude our friends. I think they just don't know. They
Exactly.
don't,
Well,
would they
they're
even
going in the
enjoy this, or
routine.
how can we,
This is how we do things. This is great. And then you're just like, hey,
what about us?
do you think that we can make this, alteration to just a
Right.
little bit of it,
Right.
because it'll be more open for others? Just when we talked about the giving book that came out, and how I was like, hey, this would be great for so many of our friends, but on 2 pages, just 2 pages, it says kids. Can we remove that so that it's more acceptable for our adults with
Right.
disabilities, because it's on their reading level?
Yeah.
But they don't want to read something that says for kids.
Yeah, automatically. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not me. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, how can we be more, just together, and how can we work together as a team? And so
Yeah.
that's definitely grown with the way foster and adoption ministry has grown at this
Right.
campus,
Yeah.
and with the whole church. Many of our friends who are a part of the foster system have a disability, or their trauma relates heavily to the
Have
needs
some
of
behaviors
those
from that. Yeah. Yeah.
And so then the ways that we're adapting already, they're like, hey, we need to do some stuff for them.
Right.
And I'm like, this is what's worked tried and true. Let's
Yeah.
see if we can make it work for your friends too. But it has changed the DNA of our church, and just how we
Definitely,
need to be more.
I think just, having a church, I'm so thankful to have a church that thinks about vulnerable families, like foster and adoption or embrace with our special needs families, and that wants them at our church.
Yes.
Right? And knows they have a place here, and hires people to help, coordinate that. We don't need experts. We just need acceptance, or making sure that people are thinking about our friends and making a space for our friends. And
I know we really benefited from having Mike Glenn as our previous senior pastor.
Yep.
Because, the ministry started
Right.
way before, but
right.
the center is named after his granddaughter,
Yeah.
Rowan.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of the clout, or I guess the recognition of the Rowan Glenn Center is because Mike Glenn was pointing towards that, because he needed a space to invite his son to come to church, even though his granddaughter had a disability.
Right.
And that we were accepting and welcoming for that. And not only just accepting, but celebrating.
Right.
Like, this is a space just for you.
Right.
She walks in there confidently, like, this is her building. He's constantly making jokes about how, like, she has a building named after him.
Yes.
And he doesn't, after all of his
That was
years
in her
here.
kindergarten All About Me book.
Yes.
Right? The last page said, tell me something we might not know about you. And she's like, well, I have a building named after me.
So fancy.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
But yeah,
she does own
she's-
the place. She walked all of our friends. They
Yes.
know. I love our lobby on Sunday mornings is busy and can be very loud, but I love that chaos.
Yes.
Joyful noise, right?
Yes, joyful noise.
And just they're walking in, they know that's their space. They know that's where they belong. And I hope that our parents continue to feel that, that they're wanted and they're known well within our ministry as well.
And that's something we started this year, was our parent support group.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's been great. That's something we have not been great about maybe over the years, or just like, we love our parents, but what else can we do? We're like, they need more.
We were
How
so
can
focused on giving them a break that we weren't really nourishing their souls. And so
Thinking
how
beyond
can we
that
be more
break.
intentional about nourishing them rather than giving the break?
Right. And I think there was that roadblock of who am I to try to provide any kind of counsel, or
I'll watch your kid any day. But
yes, I could do that. I don't know. But yeah, we contract with a counseling center that they have several employees that specialize in neurodiversity. So it's like, this is their world and they're living in it. They're wonderful. And so we have a therapist that comes. When we started on Wednesday nights. So we were already providing care.
Makes it easy.
Yeah. And so parents could come and like a support group. I feel like that gets a bad connotation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I say that just for easy terms, Bible study, life group. Some people don't use those different or specific terms,
Exactly.
but we say support group. We call it a parent group. We try not to make it sound so nichey, like everyone's going to be sobbing the whole time.
Yes.
Hopefully not.
But I know. But they have a counselor there, and while we're caring for their kiddos and teaching them on Wednesday nights. So that's been a great way, I think, just a small way that we can show them we're caring for your souls as well, and we care about you. We want you to help form community, because it's hard to do that in the lobby in 5 minutes when you're dropping off or picking up. And lots of our moms are involved in our women's ministry here that meets on Wednesday night. So we're like, just wherever you feel comfortable, wherever you feel included, go for it.
It was so sweet when Amy Jo was creating all the table groups, and it's all very randomized.
Yeah.
But then she was like, hey, several of the Embrace parents are at the same table.
I know.
And that is just such a God moment that, like,
Totally.
she didn't mean for that to happen.
Yeah.
And it did.
I know.
And now they're like, hey, you drop your kid off the same place I drop my kid off.
Yeah.
And now we have some similar stories.
They have kids different ages,
They
but
do.
can still bond over that. So
They're like, oh, I remember that stage. We were definitely going through that. And I
Yes,
love
that's
it
been
because
neat.
it's things that we want to see out of that, but we can't be everywhere all the time. We're here to disciple their children and to really focus in on that individual with special needs and equipping the volunteers to be there for them. And so, yeah, it's easy to forget. You're just like, oh, sure, the groups minister will handle the parents.
Right.
But the parents can still feel very wayward, like, I'm not having the same, my kid's not going to graduate the same way, or we're not having, marriages and babies. They're going to live with me forever. And I don't connect with people in my life group.
in that same.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of different times when it's always appropriate to have a group like this that's just for those parents, because they are constantly going through grief after grief, reminding themselves that maybe this isn't going to happen for my kid, and I have to let that dream go. And there's still room and hope for new dreams.
Of course, yeah.
But it's you have to be with them in those tough times.
Right. And they have someone that can relate.
Yes.
The other parents. And then that was growing. And so this past semester, we started a Thursday morning group. So now, and then in the fall, we're planning to start those back up. And I think that's been just one small way we can show our families that we care. We talked about respites. What else? We've also started some parent equip events.
Yes.
And those
super fun.
Yeah, those can look totally different. This semester we've done a potty training seminar, by a therapist that came in, and then we've done on the opposite end sometimes like a lawyer and a financial planner that can talk about
your estates,
turning
and trusts.
18 and what does that look like, all of the state forms that you have to fill out. Again, we are not experts in that. I don't pretend to be, but we have connections through the community that we can bring in and equip our parents. So that was great, and that was a neat opportunity. We opened that up to anyone in the community. Again, both of those events, and so that's been nice to bring in experts, and just provide opportunities for our parents. Like, we're happy to host.
I feel
anytime.
like something else I also tell to churches who are getting started is just to look for those community partners.
Right.
Their Johnny and Friends is so
they're
amazing.
great. Yes.
They have training online for volunteers, and they also talk about how, like, they have PowerPoints and presentations about, like, how do you get your leaders behind this? How do you get your trustees or your senior executive pastors to want to back this project?
Because that's a problem for a lot of churches. We
is.
don't have that. Thankfully, we have full support from our senior pastor and all,
But they might be like, oh, well, we're heavily delved into this topic and we're just not going to touch on that. And you're like, you're missing out a whole section of people by not doing that. And how do you present yourself well? Because not everybody has a full special needs, special education background.
Right.
You may have a heart for it, but you're like, how do I communicate to this to people?
Yeah.
I fumble through my words.
Right.
And so it's a great way. They have regional people who are in your area who they are ministry partners.
Right. They want to jump in and help. And
and I love that we have
ideas.
Our local person comes and talks to us.
Yeah.
And he'll go through, our ups and downs and what are we struggling with and maybe how can we talk through some stuff. And then also presenting some opportunities for families like retreats.
Yeah.
Because those are super fun.
Yeah, the family camp and
just like
marriage
for
retreats.
us, like how sometimes we have to set that line of like camp is not a great setting for everyone.
Right.
Sometimes it's going to cause more anxiety or we're going to have a lot of health issues. And so is it the best place for your child? But Johnny and Friends has these family camps where they can support you and they can love on you all well. And it's a great place to be. And so instead of giving that full no, we can't do camp, your kid can't come. It's the,
we don't specifically do a camp.
Instead, this is an opportunity for you. And I feel like that's always the way that we go is we don't want to full stop say no to a family, but it's how can we say yes in a different way? I feel like we say that to the friends. You're not supposed to say no or later. It's just,
let's walk.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea, a great plan for parents to know or those interested in starting a special needs ministry. Like you don't have to have all the answers, right? You talked about having a heart for ministry, maybe someone wanting to start one. We always say that to our volunteers, right?
Yes.
You do not need to be an expert. We aren't experts. We're just making it work. But you just need to have a heart, right? For our friends and think that they belong here. Who would say, no one would say no to that. But we've had so many people that just have come to us and said, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a teacher. I don't know, but God just placed it on my heart to help this ministry. Sounds amazing. Can I still help? We're like, absolutely.
Absolutely. We will equip you. We'll train you. We'll get you plugged in. And what I always tell our staff members and our other volunteers is this individual has lived a long life and they are well educated in whatever they're educated in. If maybe they're an accountant and they're really great at it. And so just because they don't know special needs doesn't mean that we're going to talk down to them. And so let's talk about how we open that up and we have open dialogue of just, hey, so we have visual schedules. Do you know what that is? I'd love to show you. This is something that works for him. Maybe, you might want to start incorporating it. Have you tried sign language? Maybe that's something that you might be interested in learning a little bit more about in your part-time, at home.
Right.
And you can bring that here so that you can engage with our friends more. But never talk down to a volunteer just because you're like, oh, well.
I mean, one of our most loyal volunteers is an accountant, right?
Yes, exactly.
She's amazing,
Susan's
Susan.
amazing.
And she started when before we had even our space upstairs, I think. She was a preschool teacher in our preschool ministry. She was amazing. And we had friends that were included in her class. Anytime I might have been short a volunteer, she would say, just bring them. They're fine, Ellie.
I don't
You're
need a
good.
buddy. You're good.
And was so accepting of our friends. And now prayer warrior for her class. She teaches our teens and adults at 9:30, their life group.
Amazing.
Yeah, she is. So I love, she's a great example, I guess, of a volunteer that didn't have a special needs background.
Yeah, but just had a heart for it. And then sort of, it's infectious. When she comes in there and shows I love putting new volunteers in there. I'm like, just go learn from Susan.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, this was so fun and engaging. And it's like, hey, someone might be having a hard time. We might have a little bit of tears because we're having some separation from parents. And that's okay.
Right.
And this is how we navigate and love on them well to get back to it. Because the thing that we always talk about is that no one is going to learn the gospel if we're upset.
Right.
And so first, we're going to make sure that you're nice and safe.
Yeah.
Have we safeguarded everything? Are the doors secure? Are you an elopement risk? Because we do have that sometimes. And then are you comfortable? Are you happy? Are we in the swing? Because that doesn't mean the gospel has to stop because you can't sit at the table.
Right.
You have to sit in your hard chair with your table.
We do not do much teaching all at a table, all in a circle. Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't happen that way.
Our sensory
and that's okay.
classroom, and even in the, included classrooms and their peer ministry,
right.
You can teach wherever. If we're on the floor, let's do it there.
Right.
Or if it's interactive, if we're going to play with Play-Doh, well, I'm going to make a little Noah's Arch. And Ark. Ooh, goodness. I said Noah's Arch. Look at me go. So yeah, we're going to make a little Noah's Ark, and then we're going to take those little characters and put them across. And maybe some of our friends are making, dinosaurs or Godzilla.
Yes. Right.
And I'm just talking lovingly about how, well, I see Godzilla ate some of the people. How would God have handled that situation? And so how are we going to wrap it all?
God made you so creative.
Yes.
You were so artistic. I could never do that, Jake, but you are amazing.
You were so imaginative.
Right.
Oh, that boy.
I know.
But yeah, and so it's fun the ways that we get to just find ways to bring the gospel into everything. Or whenever Cooper is pacing around the room, and so I am keeping pace with him and just talking about
Walking
how
and
Jericho, walked around the,
Yes.
and we took the walls down, and he's just like, okay, I'm going to walk faster. And I'm like, I'm still going to share the gospel, and we're going to talk. And so it's just fun that we can take it to all different levels, whatever it can look like. And that's just knowing that there's flexibility. So you can learn a lot from just thinking about how preschool ministry is trying to teach their lessons to their younger friends. Well, just because they might go to kids ministry or student ministry doesn't mean that you stop being flexible. You stop teaching those different kinesthetic learning type of ways, that you start becoming more rigid. But on the opposite end, just like for us, when we are working towards goals with our friends, we're not looking towards this semester or next year. I'm looking for the next 10 years.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, okay, if this guy wants to go to camp someday, these are the steps we're going to have to do.
Yeah.
Or the biggest one that I'm always harking about is, okay, let's say that whenever you're older, you're going to go to your cousin's baptism at your uncle's church. What do you need to do to sit through service? So how am I best equipping you to sit through service?
Right.
And so are we giving you situations where you are being pushed, where you're learning more, where you're trying new situations, or are we just going comfortable?
Yeah.
You're in your same classroom by yourself with your 2 volunteers, and we're not really trying much. You've sort of given up on them.
I think too, that's one point about special needs ministry. We don't have like it's a very fluid start and end date.
Yes.
It's not like birth through first grade, kindergarten, first grade through 5th, like our other next gen ministries do. We're kind of like,
or they can be like, here's our 5th graders, take them to students.
We have all ages. Sometimes we forget what grades our friends are in because they're in classrooms that are several grades, right? That are more developmental and age-ish.
And even at their at school, they're even in sort of a moment, or even homeschooling, they're like, well, we're kind of on all of these different spectrums.
And I think we're always thinking about, which is an amazing thing. We have these, we don't have to say goodbye to our friends. They're not leaving us for student ministry or leaving for adult ministry. And we get to see the progression and see how several of our friends, how they've grown and changed. But it's just a lifelong ministry, right? And which can be challenging. Like, okay, how can we keep this fresh where they're not in the same classroom or looking at the same curriculum week after week, right?
I mean, that just recently happened with Benja.
Yeah.
We were having that conversation. He was he's very rigid in wanting his schedule, but it's very distressing for him. And we couldn't figure out where that was coming from. And so we were talking with, and this is something we also talk with the parents too. Yeah. We love it when their therapists are able to come in. And so we heavily encourage that.
Open door. Well,
speech therapists.
We get them background checks.
Yes, we do all the things.
Do all of that. Yeah.
And we're like, come on a Sunday morning.
Yeah,
Tell us. Let's generalize these things from school, from home to church. How can we make this a better environment for them? Are you using visual cues that we're using different ones and he doesn't know how to change the characters?
Yeah.
Show me yours. I'll make copies. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So don't start over. Don't try to start from scratch one. But let's talk with the people. Let's talk with their aides at school.
I was saying, you talk a lot of times with their teachers or
and they give us their behavior plans. And I'm like, yes, it makes so much sense now.
Right.
Thank you.
Because sometimes if we're just seeing them a couple hours a week, that's a very, short amount of time. And so there might be a goal they're working on at school that we're like, oh, we never thought of trying this.
Like, wait, they can do that? Because
right.
here they've been totally, substitute teachering me and
right.
living off Carly gives me snacks for doing all this. You can do it without snacks? I should stop giving you all the snacks.
Exactly.
So with Benja, we just found he was having such a hard time with that rigidity. And so we had his therapist come in and she ripped it apart. Just got rid of that schedule.
Yep.
And he is just flourishing.
He's doing great. Yeah.
He doesn't need the schedule anymore. And 2 years ago, that wouldn't have been a thing. But now, and I'm like, hey, you could go to your uncle's church because you don't need a schedule because you understand you can be more flexible in the situation. Right. And it's amazing just to see him grow. And you can get stuck on that. You're like, I'm still thinking about him when he was in 5th grade. Yeah. Now he's in 7th grade and he's growing and maturing. And so how do we keep in touch with the parents, with the therapist, and with our next gen people, with student ministry, hey, what are student ministry doing now? How can we engage our friends in that? What does it look like for them to be engaged? And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
We have a 1st grade Bible presentation.
Right.
And so that doesn't mean just because our friends come to our building, have a separate classroom, and they may not see, the regular classrooms in their peer ministry, and their parents might not get the emails or notice them even. They should still get a Bible.
Right.
Just because they're hitting 1st grade. So maybe they'll come to the ceremony and maybe we'll have our own separate tiny thing because they can't handle large crowds. But that shouldn't mean that they should be completely left out of it. And so just keeping that conversation with your different ministry leaders.
Yeah, we're so thankful that we have such amazing next gen ministries and just all the ministries on campus. But specifically, we work with different next gen ministries a lot to talk about how can we engage our friends or them saying, hey, we're having some problems with this kiddo at the 11 o'clock hour. Can you guys come help us? Or, and that fluid transition of should they be in preschool with the buddy, or are they doing fine in preschool without a buddy, or should they be in the center with us, And
I just talked with a parent about that recently. We are here to support alongside all of those navigating waters. Yeah. And so if they're in preschool without a buddy, but now suddenly we need a buddy, that's not something to be sad about. That's just something that we're navigating at this moment. That doesn't mean that next year it's not going to be different or as we move back and forth. And that's the whole point, is just because you see us adding more support doesn't mean that your child's any less loved.
Right.
And that they won't meet these needs, or that you won't see them as a senior going to the Chicago journey, because they could. We have one that's talking about it and wanting to go, and that's a hope for him in the years to come.
Right.
But when he was in 2nd grade, I don't know if you would have pictured that.
No, never. That's where I underestimate, right?
Yes.
All that God's going to do with our families and our friends, for sure.
Yeah. So it is just such a blessing to work with these friends and being a part of this ministry. And it is something that if you don't have this ministry as part of your church, you were really missing out on all of these lovely people, these families, these individuals, these kids that just make my whole day. And I understand it, just like I made a joke with one of my friends that she's a math teacher. And so math's just not for me. And she's like, well, special needs. And I was like, special needs is for everybody. I don't know what you're talking about. We all have different learning styles, and that's just all it is. Is we're just changing up how we learn.
Thanks for joining us for today's conversation on special needs ministry. From starting small and listening well to resourcing families and building a strategy that truly reflects the heart of Christ. If you're looking for more ways to lead and serve with purpose, don't miss the Elevate Church Conference, a one-day event designed to equip pastors, church leaders, and teams with practical strategies to lead well. Learn more and register at elevatechurchconference.com. Find today's show notes for key takeaways, and we'll see you next time on the Elevate podcast.